Hello, this is just by the way of being a little bit of housekeeping in that when we recorded this, we thought we'd have time to record the whole of the 7th Doctor World Cup in one go, but we ran out of time just after the quarterfinals. So as I'm recording this, we haven't yet reconvened to record the semis and the final. So what we decided to do was split it into two, so this episode ends after half time, as it were, because we discussed Dimensions in Time on the TV movie, before moving on to the knockout stages. So that's where today's podcast will end, and the knockout stages will come to you shortly. Also, there's a little bit of variable audio quality on Tony's line in particular. He did end up re-recording a bit that dropped out on my recording. See if you can spot it. It's very blatant. Anyway, on with the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the UFOcast Does Doctor Who. And for those of you that thought you were subscribed to a Jerry Anderson podcast, I am sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate feed on the website, which will just contain the Jerry Anderson content. And believe me, there is more coming. There's some solo content from me some point later this year. I'm not going to promise exactly when. So I will create a special feed and you can subscribe to that and you won't get any of these Doctor episodes. For anybody else who just wants to hear me and Michael and I guess waffle, then keep subscribed to the main feed. So we enjoyed the first Doctor World Cup so much last time that we decided we would go again, and the consensus was that we would do the 7th Doctor. So joining me again are...
Tony Cross, hello again.
Michael Gilroy Sinclair, hello.
Siobhan Galichon, hello.
Hello, everybody. So, as before, I have given you the groups, which this time we had to generate randomly because we're not piggybacking off Doctor Who magazine this time. We've gone with the 12 stories from Sylvester's time between 1987 and 1989 because that nicely divides into 4. We aren't including Dimensions in Time or the TV movie. We can have a brief natter about those in the gap between when we've done the groups and the knockout stages. So I am just these guys. So Tony and Michael and Siobhan have not seen the standings. They've sent me their individual votes. They've not seen the groups yet. So I'm about to reveal those to them for the first time. And we have one group to argue over who comes second because it was a tie. So
insert drum roll here.
Let me share that with you now.
Ta-da!
So, in Group A, we have The Curse of Fenric, Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and coming in bottom, unsurprisingly, Time and the Rani. Group B, Happiness Patrol, Silver Nemesis, and coming in the bottom, Delta and the Bannermen. You'll see a theme here. And Group C, Ghostlight, Battlefield, Paradise Towers, but that's the tie there, Battlefield and Paradise Towers. And Group D, Remembrance of the Daleks, Survival, and then Dragonfire coming in bottom of the group. So those of you who know your seasons will know that season 24 has not done well here.
There's a definite Langford theme.
Yes. Where are the new adventures?
I have not read it.
That's Group E to G.
Yes, that's all the other groups.
Did you just say you've not read one?
I've never read a new adventure. I have never had any desire to read
unworthy of the diamond logo.
I mean, they were unworthy of the diamond
That's
logo
all
too.
I'm saying. They
weren't all, and I've got a full set.
So there.
Talking of the diamond logo, I bought a piece of artwork off Bernard Lodge.
Oh.
Yeah, which I can show you all later. Those of you who are on Zoom with me now, sorry, listeners, you can find it on Twitter.
Or just imagine.
I tweeted a picture of it the other day. So, I'm trying to remember, how did we resolve a tie in the groups last time? Can anybody remember? So that we can resolve.
It was
problematically.
Well, initially it was the story. If the story that got the most fours, so got the most top votes, got through.
Okay, well, in this case, Battlefield has 3 2s and a 1, and Paradise Towers has a 3, a 2, and 2 1s. So on that basis, Paradise Towers should go through.
Could we argue passionately either way?
Okay, well, so let's start with that group then. So, Michael, why does Paradise Towers deserve to go out and Battlefield deserve to go through?
Right, well, Battlefield's got the Great Destroyer. Battlefield was meant to be, and I know we don't want to deal with the whole, what could we have had thing, but it was meant to be the Brigadier's last story. And to be fair, it kind of was, right? So, and you've got Unit evolving and being better. And also, I remember distinctly watching it and going, oh my God, Morgan Le Fay, right? I'm a huge Arthurian Myths fan. I love the idea of the Doctor experiencing it backwards. I ask Big Finish every year to do a box set of alternative universe Doctors where you've got the Merlin story myth being told through that, and you can get them back. It's just a hugely important story to me. I just love it. Paradise Towers, on the other hand, not so much.
Build high for happiness, Michael.
Exactly right. Now, I like The Good Life. However, there's a certain performance level that even I have an issue with. It's like even JNT could have spotted that somebody had to turn themselves down from 12 to, say, an 8. And I've got an issue with that. I'm not fond of the cleanness. I love the world building. It's brilliant. I mean, it's just incredible. I can see its plus points. Mel almost dies. So there are some really good bits of it. But it's just not for me. Oh, yeah, you're going to get a lot of that in this podcast. You really are.
Okay.
You know the way that there's a certain level of dislike for these McCoy era coming from Radio Free Skaro? Well, it's more Mel than anything else for me, right? Because I love the McCoy era, right? I really do.
I think I'm going to have to go and have a little chat with those boys.
But Battlefield is just leaves Paradise Towers for dust. But that's just my reading. Feel free to disagree. You'll be wrong, but disagree.
To be fair, Sean, it's only really Warren who doesn't like Sylvester. I think the other two have quite a fondness. Tony, you also ranked Paradise Towers at the bottom of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it not deserve to go through?
I ranked it bottom of the group slightly less clearly than Michael obviously did. I rewatched it fairly recently, and I mostly enjoyed it. The problem is Richard Braz's performance. Fundamentally, actually, there's another problem as well. But I'll mention that after this. And I don't think Richard Braz is too bad before he becomes the zombified.
No, fair enough.
Caretaker. I think it's when after he becomes the zombified chief caretaker that he forgets that he's supposed to be acting in something that's a professional performance. And I love Richard Braz as an actor, but that whatever it is, 25 minutes, 40 minutes is the worst acting from any senior acting professional in any episode of Doctor Who.
My dreams of conquest.
No, I love that performance. I love that performance.
Sorry, cat put the claws into bare legs.
But yeah, Richard Braz, and it unbalances the whole story, unfortunately. I think the world building is great. I think there's a potential in that story that isn't quite realised by the difficulties of the BBC budget in the Sylvester McCoy era. The other problem with it is I have this issue not with Bonnie Langford. I'll talk about Bonnie Langford in more detail because she's going to come up anyway. But it's Mel's obsession with getting to the swimming pool, and and then when she gets there, her desire to swim in the swimming pool. That for some reason that just really irritates me. Whereas Battlefield is just fun.
Well,
Battlefield is fun.
Sorry, I've just realised. Right, this Group C, contains Ghostlight, which is always going to get my one of my top votes, and Battlefield, which is always going to get one of my. For me, those two stories could be the actual final. So that's the only reason that Battlefield isn't getting top marks for me is because it's standing next to Ghostlight.
Okay.
So that's how much I like.
And my last comment on my last comment about Battlefield is that Nicholas Courtney is brilliant in it.
Right.
Sylvester's brilliant in it. Sophie's brilliant in it. Apart from Boom, which doesn't really do it for me.
No.
But that story as a
Angela
whole.
Bruce.
Angela Bruce is great. I think it's a pretty good story. But so it's almost unfortunate that Paradise Towers is. Well, I think Paradise Towers would probably struggle whatever group you put it in. But This one particular.
Okay, so we've had the two of you who ranked it bottom of the group. Siobhan, you share a love for Ghost Light with the other two, but you've put Paradise Towers above Battlefield. So why Paradise Towers ahead of Battlefield?
I won't deny it was tough, quite frankly. Battlefield was a disappointment. It should have been so much better, but no, it's outside video location camera stuff. So it's bright and shiny. You've got Kef's music, which is hideously inappropriate in places. To an extent, it does seem a bit light entertainment, and I point to that final scene to seal that. Whereas Paradise Towers, for its time, was a blast of fresh air. We'll obviously talk about Time and Durante a little bit later. But Paradise Towers, this is the new broom. This is what we're doing. Look at that, great world building. I think Richard Bryce, to a certain extent, was let down with direction for his zombie performance, and possibly the script as well. There are other ways of playing that, and I'm surprised nobody actually tried to get him to do it. But
I think just spraying him silver didn't help.
No, that was. It's like they'd managed to go so far, and then suddenly, oops! Last year's just popped in to say hello. Paradise Towers, like I say, was dig the new breed. This is the blast of fresh air. Battlefield is almost a last hurrah, but it's a bit of a panto. However, I do love the Arthurian stuff, and I wish they'd cast a ginger doctor in the TV series so they can do a Ben Aranovich written sequel/prequel.
I once spoke to Ben Aranovich about.
Did you say hello?
I did when he was working in Waterstones in Covent Garden before he became a successful writer again. And his view of Battlefield is very negative.
You get that on the Blu-ray when in the writers' room. Yeah.
Right. In that case, I think we have to therefore bow to the writer of the series and put Paradise Towers through.
Well,
I almost can I just say I almost want to put Paradise Towers through because I feel otherwise no season 24 story is going to get through to the next round.
Wait till I argue Delta and the Bannerman. I'll get you to change your mind.
You definitely can't. We're not arguing the rest of the group because those are very clear. I mean, you can tell us why it should have gone through. Obviously, you can look at my scores for this, and my scores are the reverse of Tony and Michael because I have put Ghostlight at the bottom of the group, and we will argue that in future rounds because Ghostlight is definitely going through. So we're not going to talk about Ghostlight any further at this point. It's just not for me.
Okay.
And which means that I agree with Tony and Michael that Battlefield comes second in the group. But obviously, I would put Paradise Towers through along with it and throw away Ghostlight. So it's not to say that I disagree with you guys about Battlefield. I quite enjoy it. I just rate Paradise Towers more highly. And I suppose a lot of this, and I do ultimately have to disregard the book, but the book was my way into the story, and so I was able to appreciate the story without the flaws that you guys have all highlighted, which I do admit are there once you watch it on TV. So yes, I was somewhat disappointed when I first watched it, I think, but I do really enjoy it. I think that the whole Kang thing is well done. I love the different groups of people in the towers. I don't have a problem with Richard Bryce's performance. I know that puts me in a minority. I think he's playing a character who's been trapped in a basement for I don't know how many years, who's suddenly transplanted back into a body. And that could be how it would go. I don't have a problem with it. And oh yeah, we haven't mentioned the Resis. The Resis are brilliant. Brenda Bruce and Elizabeth Spriggs and Judy Cornwell are just fabulous, absolutely fabulous, and the sort of interactions with Mel. And I suppose I don't have as much of a problem with Bonnie Langford as Michael does. So
yes.
I mean, to be fair, I've been listening to her on Big Finish recently because I've re-listened to a few of those early ones and really enjoyed her. Possibly because she's slightly more toned down and less theatrical than she is on the TV.
Well, this is what I want to say. Sorry,
I was just going to say I enjoy her as a companion because after 2 years? Well, I suppose three with the hiatus. 2 years of Colin and Nicola, and I love Nicola Bryant, and I do enjoy Perry, but their relationship is not fun to watch for the most part, and Mel's just having fun, and so I would love for a Mel story to go through, and seeing as all the other Mel stories have failed to make it through their groups, I would love Paradise Towers to be the representative of Mel going into the next round.
Well, you could sorry, as this is a World Cup, you could pull a I am FIFA and they're massively corrupt, and therefore Paradise Towers is
hang on, let's go to the VR. Let's see what that says.
Can I just say, I'm looking at Group D, and I'm thinking I may have pressed the wrong button on some of my my Survival and Dragonfire. Now, if I change my numbers over, it still doesn't affect the overall outcome, but it does mean that the person in second place only wins by 1 point.
Okay, that's so can you rescore Group D then for us, please, Michael?
Yeah, I want Survival and Dragonfire swapped. I want the Survival with a 2 and Dragonfire with a 1.
Well, that means no.
Okay, so basically means we all entirely agree on Group D because we've all gone 3 for Remembrance, 2 for Survival, and 1 for Dragonfire.
What was I thinking? I'm very sorry. Clearly my dyslexia kicked in and all the numbers just had a dance. I apologise profusely. Feel free to put them back. I know nothing.
Oh, so you do want to put Dragonfire above Survival?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
22!
Exactly. Right. I apologise now.
Okay.
We'll edit this out.
I think, yes, we will edit that out.
I am prepared.
Thank you.
If it's going to make it easier, on the basis of Luke's exceptional defence of Paradise Towers, to swap my votes around.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Tony has spoken.
Did nothing I say touch your heart?
It may do in a later point.
Okay. You will let me know, won't you?
I will.
So on that basis, we have said goodbye to Battlefield. As I say, I wouldn't have had it that way. I would have got rid of Ghost Light, but there we go.
You're wrong.
Yes, I've no doubt I'm wrong, and we can argue the toss on that in the next round. So, yes. Group A, we have all gone Curse of Fenric top, so let's ignore Fenric for now. That will have further discussion in the next round. Where there is disagreement, and again, I am the dissenting voice here, is between Greatest Show and Time and the Rani. So you have all given it 2. And it goes through in second place. I can't argue with that. Siobhan has gone so far as to give Time and the Rani a 0, which is technically
on a scale of 1 to 3. That's how much I value it.
Technically against the rules, but hey, we're going to allow that. I'm not going to say any more about Time and the Rani, other than I've done a video on my YouTube channel in defence of Time and the Rani. I will put a link to it in the show notes.
You crazy fool!
I recognise that I am massively an outlier here. In that I enjoy it more than I enjoy Greatest Show.
It's a different style of show.
Does anybody
understand why it would appeal to one person and not another?
Yes. So do any of you want to talk about your hatred of Time and the Rani, or should we just move on?
Can I just say, before I let somebody who obviously really hates it, I don't actually hate it. I rewatched it recently, and I had a ball watching it. But of those 3 stories, it's my least favourite. And that's why it came bottom.
Fair enough.
That's fair. I must admit, I've got to say exactly the same thing. And it's not just a Melism. I out of those three, it is just the one that comes bottom out of those three. Time in the Rani. I remember watching it. That video, the special effect of Mel bouncing around in that video ball. I remember sort of catching my breath at the time. How old was I now? It was 87. I was like 14, something like that. And I just sort of went, okay, Doctor Who really knows what it's doing now. And that level of impression I can remember even to this day. So Time in the Rani does have incredibly good moments. The Rani, I mean, it's a Pip and Jane Breaker story, and they still manage to pull things together. Yes, there's stuff wrong with it. That dark matter, the giant pulsing brain thing. Yeah, bless him. What's going on with that? But it's nowhere near as bad as it goes out. But like everyone said, it's the least good of these three. But I'm really not a fan of The Greatest Show. So
okay, well we can argue that in the next round because Greatest Show goes through. Siobhan, why does Time in the Rani, of all of the stories in this competition, deserve a 0?
It's personal. You see, okay, we're going to go back into the history of me a little bit. Back in '87, I'd set up the Jersey Doctor Who fan club. I'd been in the local paper, talking about it and this, that, and the other. And as a new Doctor, I was so looking forward to it. And then I heard dee-da-dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-da-dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-da-dee-dum, and was slightly sort of worried. And then I heard the incidental music, which, in fairness to Kev, was a bit of a rush job, and just went, yes, the Mel videos, the Mel effect spinning around, very, very nice. The Rani is more like her character out of Dynasty than the Rani from Mark of the Rani. I'm sorry, it is. And unfortunately, Sylvester was struggling to find his feet on that first one.
Well, he'll admit to that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see, as we said, Paradise Towers, he's found his feet already. There's that wonderful scene with the two caretakers, and he talks his way out of it, which I should have mentioned earlier. But Time of the Rani was just an embarrassment to me. Skip forward to 1989, and I'm living in a homeless hostel, and the only tape we have to play is mine. And it's the Doctor Who 25th Anniversary album, which features a load of Kev McCulloch music, including The Brain, the Lycurtian Leisure Centre music. And do you know it is burnt in up there? Do you know I hear it in my dreams? Time in the Rani, you get 0.
Stop.
So what you're saying is, Time in the Rani is the theme tune of depression. Or despair.
That's poetical. I like that.
Right. Okay. Well, I think you've justified your 0.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and there's absolutely nothing we can say to make that funny.
No.
So let's just move on.
I just need therapy. That's all.
No,
well, that's all right.
That's absolutely fair. And I suppose in the past, I was going to say, in the past, I probably would have switched my vote around. But for me, there's a historical aspect to this in that for whatever reason, I was sitting watching the VHS. I was living with housemates at the time, and one of them came in, and I wasn't embarrassed to be watching it. And I found myself sitting there and enjoying it for the first time. And I thought, actually, this is not, as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't deserve its reputation. I recognise its flaws. I recognise why people don't like it. But I really enjoy it, and I unashamedly put it through second. But you didn't, so that's fine, and I'm happy for it to go out of the competition. Tony, you had something else to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think my feelings about season 24 need to be put into a small context. I know we've only got a few minutes, so I'll try and give you a bit brief on this word. I was 17 in 1987. I should remember the birthday, but there you go. I'd only just become what I call a proper Doctor Who fan. I'd always watched Doctor Who, but the Colin Baker era turned me into I'm going to collect all this stuff, buy all this stuff, get into this stuff, read DWM, read DWB, that kind of fan. and I was so proud of being like the Doctor Who, and I wanted everybody to love it. And when the title sequence started for season 24, that McCoy wink, I was just like, "What? This is embarrassing."
I feel you, my brother. Preach, preach.
And for a long time, that has skewed my opinion of season 24. I mean, for a long time, because I used to have to defend Doctor Who to other people by saying it's a brilliant TV series, and even season 24, and it's much maligned as we're doing now, basically. But it's still better than 95% of other television, and
we've literally all been there. We've all defended it. No, we've all defended it. Yeah, but no. What we're saying is we'd rather watch Time in the Rani than other things. We're not saying it's better than other things. We just would rather watch it.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. We've all been the person in the corner defending it. It's like it's a dodgy relative. That's what Doctor Who is to me. It's like it's an uncle. You just kind of, but it's family. You love it, and you will defend it to high heaven when you know you really shouldn't be, but you will, because that's kind of fandom I am.
I'm starting to regret life choices.
Well, now
you're listening to Group Therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let it out. After all these years, just let it out.
Yeah, let it all out. All those years.
Moving on to Group B, we are largely in agreement here with regards to the Happiness Patrol, broadly speaking. Michael is more fond of Silver Nemesis than the rest of us, and Siobhan is the sole voice for keeping Delta and the Bannermen in the group. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Siobhan. Why Delta over the others?
Right, well, Silver Nemesis is pants. There we go. Let's just get it out of the way now. Silver Nemesis, just forget Silver Nemesis. This was a slight step back after, Remembrance of the Daleks, basically, which we will come to. So there's that. But Delta and the Bannermen. Now, I admit this one it's been a grower on me. When I first watched it, I was a little bit, oh my God, what is this? But looking back at it now over the years, I've come to love it. You can see what they were doing. Again, it's that fresh, new Cartmel look to it, and feel to it. I was going to say the taste of it. And it's glorious. It celebrates itself in a way that Battlefield got wrong. Even down to the Dick Tracy, Devil's Chase?
Gallop.
I can't remember. Devil's Gallop. Thank you. Even down to that. What a perfect knock, sort of tip of the hat. I'm sorry, but I love Delta and the Bannermen. Not as much as Happiness Patrol, because Happiness Patrol, which we will talk about, has lots of lovely bits to it. But I easily put Delta and the Bannermen over Silver Nemesis every time.
Okay.
So
Michael.
Yes.
Why does Delta and the Bannermen come bottom of the group?
Because it's Delta and the Bannermen? No. It's the Baby Yoda? No.
Do you know I can see you, don't you?
I know you can see me, right? It just didn't really do it for me. I had issues with Ken Dodd. I had issues with the flying bus. At the time, I mean, we're talking, I'm 14, 15 and thinking I know better than everyone else. Clearly I don't. Now I can see them for what they are. But at the time I was like we said, which we find ourselves having to defend our Doctor Who fandom to strangers. And you just, when you're watching an episode like that, you're going, how the hell am I supposed to defend this? And that's kind of where my head was at for the longest of times. And yet I would still spend a week's wages on a VHS of this at the drop of a hat without even thinking. But it wasn't what I wanted. I got Ken Dodd to sign my copy. That's what it was like, right? So I know
longest
I'm a
6
hypocrite.
hours of your life.
Exactly. I know I am a hypocrite, but that's it. That's it's out of these three, I'd rather watch Nazis versus Cybermen any day.
That's fair. Tony?
I have grown to dislike Delta and the Bannermen as time has gone by, in the opposite track to Siobhan. I loved it when it was first shown. I really enjoyed it. But each time I've watched it since, I find there are bits of it I like with all Doctor Who. There's always something in there that I enjoy. But there's also some very cringe-worthy moments in Delta and the Bannermen. Some of it doesn't make any sense at all, but then lots of Doctor Who doesn't make any sense. I also think that it's slightly skewed by, and I'm going to forget the actor's name, the guy playing the villain.
Don Henderson.
Don Henderson,
yes,
who is brilliant and puts in a brilliant performance, but his performance is slightly out of whack with what's going on in the rest of the story. He's playing it very serious and very deadly and very nasty, and the rest of the story has a sort of slight. Although, again, but fundamentally, let me ask that before waffling on.
Fundamentally, my problem with this story is it's tonally all over the place. It goes from genocide to holiday camp.
Welcome to Doctor Who.
Yeah, I know, but this one's even more obviously silly in that respect. And I love silly normally.
You see, Luke sat there. He's chuckling to himself over this. He gets three of us together so he can just laugh at us disagreeing.
Well, I the thing is, I'm in agreement with Tony's order on this group. I mean, for me, this group is more a case of I'm not overly fond of any of them, but that is the order that I've ranked them in. And I think I have similar issues as Tony with Delta and the Bannermen. My main thing with Delta and the Bannermen is that I don't care about Delta because Belinda, is it Belinda Main? Her performance is so wooden, and I just don't care about her. And I think if they'd cast, or if she'd done a better performance, or if somebody else had been cast in the role that made me care about her plight, then I think I would enjoy the story. But as it is, I'm just like, why should I care? Because you're not making me care.
But the almost companion, was very good.
The baby in the suit is just laughable in a sort of... And again, there are other things in Doctor Who that I should have a problem with like that, but that just takes the biscuit.
With Delta and the Bannermen, the one thing that's really, really good is the almost companion. I'm so sorry. And you know what? If I stand here long enough, I'll remember her name, but I can't be bothered.
Right.
She was superb. Ray was brilliant. And she was like in a completely different program to everyone else. So she is the redeeming feature of Delta and the Bannermen for me. But it was the trip bus, it was all of that nonsense. And I just couldn't get round it at the time, and that's left a kind of scar that I just haven't been able to move from.
Sorry, the CIA agent, the tongues out bit is just...
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, though it has given us one of the most hilarious Target book spelling errors.
And typos.
Yeah.
And typos, yes.
I don't know this.
With the Doctor peeing over a shelf.
Yeah, and it was Doctor Who and the Bannerman. If you remember.
Was that on the cover?
Spine.
Ah.
It was on the spine.
I should have a look at my copy when I can get back into my office. That's Group B. We've already done Group C because that was the one that had the quibble over who went through second. So Group D, again, like Group A, where we all said Fenric was best, Group D, Remembrance is the top dog for all of us. And then with the exception of Michael, the rest of us have gone for Survival in second, putting Dragonfire clearly at the bottom of the group. So, Michael, why have you put Dragonfire above Survival?
2 reasons. 1, Ace arrives. 2, Mel leaves. They're the primary focus for why I love Dragonfire, right? I also like, I love the film Aliens, so I get to watch it here. Melty face, what's not to like with melty face? Melty face effect versus dodgy cat. Dodgy animatronic cat. Right? Now, if Survival wasn't the last episode of Doctor Who ever, as far as we were concerned, for 100 years, then it would just have been an also ran of a story. And I know that everyone else has got really high regards for it. And yeah, right, it's the Master, apart from the contact lenses, what's all that about? Yeah, I know if we all fight like animals, we'll all stand in the street in the middle of a council estate, right? I get it. right? Right, I get the important messages, right? I get that it is about evolution. I get Rona Cameron's. Well, I wish she'd been I wish she'd been allowed to be less subtle with what was
Rona
going on and what was being
Munro.
allowed. Thank you very much.
That's all
Did I
right.
say Rona Cameron?
You did,
did.
yes.
That would be a hilarious Doctor Who script, but let's leave it there.
It would have been pigs instead of cats.
Which I may have enjoyed more. I don't know. And I'm a cat person.
And there's
Right,
something
but-
that's been said.
It's just not really for me. If it wasn't for the last story and that last speech that the Doctor makes where the tea's getting cold, which, you know, I'll always love. No, Survival's just not for me. And Dragonfire, it's got a massive place in my heart. That's it. I
Okay.
can't defend any more than that, but that's basically it. I just kind of,
Can I,
if I was sat in a room and I went, right, I've got an hour and a half to kill, what can I watch? I'd bung Dragonfire in over Survival almost every time, including the cliffhanger. Yes, I know, but retconning that with a picture of Clara in the foreground doesn't help either. is completely fine, but I'd rather watch Dragonfire over Survival, and that's just a personal thing because it presses a lot of emotional childhood memories, which is, I guess, why I'd watch the old stuff.
can I at this point, as Dragonfire is Bonnie Langford's last story, can I at this point make my defence of Bonnie Langford?
Feel free.
I think the problem with Mel isn't Bonnie Langford. The problem with Mel is that they basically went, "Oh, we've got Bonnie Langford playing Mel, so let's just get her to be an exaggerated version of Bonnie Langford."
That's
Rather
fair.
than saying to Bonnie Langford, "Here's a part. Try and let's give you something to do with this part that is more than just you standing around squealing." Then I think she'd have done something with it. She's a good actress. I've seen her in other things since, and she's a good actress. Especially when she dials it down. And the problem is with Mel, nobody really created anything that she could get her teeth into. And I think the problem
I
is
agree.
and you can hear it in the difference between her performance. You mentioned it at the start. Compare her
Mm.
performance on Big Finish with her performance in season 24, and I think you could see that she could have done a different job if she'd been given the better direction and better writing.
Recommendation for listeners: go and listen to The Fires of Vulcan.
Yes. Yes.
What's the one where she gets abandoned and the Doctor comes back for her and she ends up in a house? It's 18 something.
I'm not sure.
No,
That's a really nice one. I think that was something like a second or third one she recorded. That one really did make me go back and go right. But yeah, you're right. Fires of Vulcan, brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
But of course, the One Doctor.
Yes.
I'm listening to that at
Almost.
the moment because
You've got your almost TV Mel, but you've got her kind of in charge, and it works. It's been written really, really well. I mean, it's a comedy episode of Doctor Who, but it works beautifully. But then you've got what's the one where it doesn't matter. Either way, there are some great stories, and we could talk about how good she is elsewhere.
Yeah.
But here,
Here we're talking about Dragonfire. So, Siobhan,
I needed to get a plug in. Funny you talk about the One Doctor, Michael, because this Sunday, obviously it'll be out on YouTube later. We're looking at the One Doctor. How ironic.
excellent.
Yes, what great timing. That's YouTube/Bibble Thruster, in case you needed to know. So, what do you want me to talk about?
Well, I was just going to say, for people listening, that is in the past. So
It
that
is.
will be available already.
We're talking to you from the future.
Yes. So, Siobhan, like myself and Tony, you have put Survival above Dragonfire. So, why does Dragonfire deserve to go out?
Okay. Michael's mentioned various themes for Survival. I'll answer your question first and then move on to survival, I think. Dragonfire deserves to go out because it still has the taint of Series 24 on it. We look no further than Stella, the Star Child, wandering around. But the thing is, it also had the... Hang on, this is actually starting to go somewhere. There's a great scene. Ace facing up to Kane, and when he offers her the mark. That was the first thing Sophie Aldred recorded, you know. But the dragon, what a letdown! It turned into Aliens, essentially done on a BBC budget with light entertainment lighting. Sylvester is the only person bothering to slide on the ice. And then being told you need to read the book to find out why the Doctor climbed over the cliff was a bit of a slap in the face. Survival, on the other hand, has all these themes, and it's Series 26 is where the new Broom, Andrew Cartmell's work has, and not just him, because it was Aranovich, it was Platt, it was the writers in general, their work started to pay off in dividends. Survival is the end of a journey for Ace, leading on to, if we'd had season 27, Ace would have ended up on Gallifrey. It tied everything together. It brought in these wonderful survival of the fittest themes, which commented beautifully on the 1980s. And it's one of Anthony Ainley's finest performances, I think, even with the teeth. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for survival, we might not have had the New Adventures, because that's where it led to. That's where all this thematic stuff that they've been looking at in Series 25 and 26, that's where it was all going. And it's a shame they didn't have that extra season just to put that final polish on it.
Was it because you read so much stuff, you never really know what's true and what somebody's made up or wishful thinking. Was Sylvester meant to stay for one whole new season, or was it more than one? Or I know that he was meant to be.
I think Sophie had one more season, and that might have been just 2 out of the 4 stories, and then they were going to bring in the new companion, Rain.
Some sort of cat burglar.
I think cat burglar. Big Finish have actually done a little mini season of these, leading to, and if I'm remembering from DWM now, the Doctor regenerating because he's lost his mind, not his body. Sylvester sort of mute, wrapped up in a straitjacket in an insane asylum. That's a strong image, and you know Sylvester would have been able to carry that off. It would have ripped us apart.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Why was I saying?
You were. I was just wondering how much further they were supposed to go. So we could have ended up with at least one whole extra season of McCoy, possibly 1.5, maybe 2. But that's just greed. But I would have loved that. Yeah. Okay. So
that's what ifs, what could have been, what we got in place. I still think it was wonderful.
So for you, Siobhan, it's more Remembrance and Survival are great, and therefore Dragonfire has to fall by the wayside, rather than a dislike of Dragonfire.
I see the point you're trying to make, but Remembrance of the Daleks is a lot more than just great.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fair. Yes. Who hasn't spoken?
Me, but I don't. I don't really have much to add to what the other two have said, because I think I don't mind. I have a weird relationship with Dragonfire. When I watched it first time, I thought it was brilliant. The next time I watched it, I thought it was absolutely awful. And gradually over time, I've come to just be somewhere in the middle of those two. I really like some aspects of Dragonfire, but there are some things in it that make fundamentally. How does a prison get turned into to Iceland, the refrigerated goods store, and nobody thinks this is weird, and it's run by where does a mass murderer pick up the skills to run a small retail enterprise?
To be fair,
I mean,
The
he's had a long
story
time
is
to
to
do
be
get
told
a
here,
lot of
isn't there?
managerial crossover skills.
I think that was going to be the next series of Tripper's Day.
Yeah, clearly
There's one
he's
for
got,
the references.
clearly he's got the man management skills of a retail senior manager.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that bit of the story always makes it seem a bit. And the little girl is really annoying.
Yeah.
And Sophie, and also Sophie, you could see is finding her feet. So I don't think this is one. I don't think it's a particularly strong performance of Sophie in that first. Apart from that scene you mentioned where she refuses the coin. I think that's very well played by everybody.
There's also the fact she thought she'd upset JNT for a long time after that. And she hadn't. It was just his way.
Yeah. And I think the villain is very strong in the sense that I think the performance is great. But survive. But the reason actually because survival's gone through, so we could talk about survival in more detail when we get to the next day.
Yeah.
There is one line from Dragonfire I love. They were putrefying, Glitz. Sorry. I just love the way.
Sorry. And Savalon Glitz. Mel going off with Savalon Glitz is the weirdest.
Explained in the New Adventures.
I know. But also in just why it's one. Savalon Glitz is one of those characters where he's played for laughs, but he's actually a terrible human, like a really unpleasant human being.
He was Ace's first.
Well, don't even start with that one.
No, please don't.
No. And the Doctor should have nothing to do with him. He's a horrible murderer.
Yes, I agree. But that's like it's been thrown completely out of the window since the previous year.
Yeah.
You know, that part of him, forget about it. Yeah. I mean, the guy was a psychopath. Robert Holmes introduced him as a pure psychopath.
Yeah, and he's played, and in this story, he's like an intergalactic minder, like not minder, whatever the
Arthur Daly.
Arthur Daly.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that viewers of my YouTube channel will have seen me championing the board game Time of the Daleks and the expansions they've done, and obviously for the later Doctors, they haven't got enough companions to fill out the sort of 5 that you get with the earlier Doctors.
Not Stella.
So the 6th Doctor gets Glitz and Dibber as some of his companions, but they have worked a bit into the game where, under certain conditions, if you have Glitz and Dibber, they have to do something nasty to one of the other Doctors, like steal a card or something. So there's a sort of acknowledgement there that in having to kind of give him these companions.
To be fair,
Sylvester gets Anselin and Bambera as some of his companions.
I think Glitz would have done better with Dibber if Dibber had been in this one.
Yes.
They were a very good pairing.
They were. The only thing I would just say about Group D is it's again, for me, it's not that I dislike Dragonfire, I just prefer the other two. And I think most of the problems that I have with Dragonfire have been highlighted by the rest of you. And I think, similarly to Tony, I think I've gone back and forth on it, and it's just ended up as being... I think because received fan wisdom was it was the best of season 24, and I definitely don't agree with that, because I enjoy Time in the Rani and Paradise Towers more. I know we've had that conversation.
So do I.
And Dragonfire's just...
It's a sickness.
Yeah, Dragonfire's just sort of middling. So, we have our quarterfinal lineup. Before we do that, though, we very briefly, because we haven't got a huge amount of time, but just very briefly, thoughts on Sylvester's 2 other stories before he handed over the reins, which are Dimensions in Time and the TV movie. Anybody want to have a minute on either of those before we go on to the quarterfinals?
I can get my views on Dimensions in Time out of the way in 5 seconds. Never seen it, never want to see it.
Oh, wow.
Now there's a challenge.
For me, Dimensions in Time is the first Doctor Who story that I ever watched.
Oh, Luke.
Yes,
It was
because...
all uphill
Poor
from there.
innocent.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. It means that I wasn't in fandom. I didn't know how I was supposed to think about it. I can't remember whether I'd already started reading the Target books by that point. I possibly had just about started reading the Target books. But otherwise, other than fleeting memories of the odd scene from when I was too small to watch Doctor Who, when channels were flipped, Dimensions in Time is the first full Doctor Who story I saw, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I recognised.
May I ask?
I was 9.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it's terrible, but it's fun.
Nick Briggs got it right in DWM. He basically started to review it, got a paragraph in and said, oh, forget it. Look, this was just a bit of charity fun.
Yes.
You can't take it seriously.
Yes.
I was more annoyed that I couldn't work the 3D glasses and I never got to see the alternative ending.
I was very disappointed when I saw it. Oh, it was Big Ron. It was amazing. Seriously. It was BAFTA worthy. It was just a shame it never got voted in.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Fair enough. I've tried, but the most upsetting bit for me was that, obviously not just for me, but for the real world in general, that when we actually reached the point when EastEnders was in the future in real life, when the dates caught up, many of the people who were in that future sequence were no longer with us. In order for that to be a parallel real thing, so that meant there was another timeline.
And predicted Arthur Fowler's death.
Well, and then I realised it doesn't really matter, so move on.
Yeah.
And what do you want?
That's
do you want
the basic answer. Just it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
And what was the other thing you wanted to
say?
Oh, just brief thoughts on Sylvester in the TV movie.
Dignified.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best he'd ever been. I just wish he'd got to say more. Yeah, and that the voiceover being McGann's voice, but being him was just one of the many mistakes they made. I have a lot more time for the movie now than I did then, because I couldn't forgive it for some of the things that don't really matter anymore. To me, it was like, I find you guilty of something I don't really care about.
Yeah,
which is how I felt. I was like very passionate about stuff. I would just go, fair enough. Half human, not half human. Who cares anymore? None of it matters. But at the time, I was all kind of very. But I remember queuing at HMV in Newcastle to try and buy it at midnight. Me and Chris, from the Faros Project, and then we watched it when we were at the animation festival we were actually in Cardiff watching it on TV, and I've got really precise memories of it and very fond memories of it, but I don't know, I just wish it had gone further, and I wish Roseanne hadn't finished that night.
Yeah,
I am actually glad the TV movie didn't take off, because if the TV movie had taken off, we would have had a yearly threat of suspension, of cancellation, because America. And the way some of the plot lines where they were looking at going were very what? And on top of that, if it hadn't have been cancelled, I honestly don't think we got the Doctor Who in 2005.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
All of those things you've just said are completely true. But at the time when you were there, that didn't matter.
Yeah.
No, you're quite right. It was, oh my God, yes.
I also like the...
But just being grateful isn't enough.
No, you're quite right.
I also like the fact that the most manipulative, can't even say the word, incarnation of the Doctor dies as the result of a fluky accident.
Yeah.
It was mentioned in the book, and I can't remember which book it was. It was A New Adventure. Indeed, I think it might have been Time When Revelation. Ace actually mentally comments that the Doctor has just not bothered looking out of the scanner. He'd stopped bothering, just landed and going straight out. That's going to come up and get you at some stage.
Yeah.
And there we go. The great mastermind. There's, what's it? The Grandmaster of Chess on God knows how many boards. Walk straight out into a hail of bullets.
Yes. But
I feel... I'm sorry, go on.
I re-listened to Colditz recently, and they do a really funny thing with it, in that essentially the same thing happens to him, in that he gets shot in the shoulder, and then he heals really quickly and the bullet falls out. And the point being about it is, it's not that he gets shot, it's that he gets taken in and treated by the healthcare system who doesn't understand his alien physiology. And if they'd just left him alone, he would have been fine.
Yeah.
Which I think is the extra sort of irony on top of it. But I mean, I really enjoy Sylvester's part in it. But equally glad that it didn't go to in hindsight, equally glad that it didn't go.
I love his costume in that as well.
True, true, that is nice. And that whole, well, it doesn't really matter. That one would have probably put cats amongst pigeons when it comes to where we'd put it in which group and things like that.
Yeah. So it's
but it's also a multi-Doctor story if you want to go down that road.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
so
reminds me,
it's good that we haven't put those in.
Just so listeners are aware, when we get round to doing the 8th Doctor World Cup, basically you'll have about enough time to drink 1 cup of tea.
Yes, it's one story in the final against itself, and it's not even full pull.
No, Night of the Doctor. You've got to include Night of the Doctor.
Okay, Night of the Doctor. Okay, yeah. Night of the Doctor against, and in both he regenerates, so it's not even. He's not even the Doctor for the whole of either story.
I'd be very tempted to do the big finish one, but then we'd be here for a couple of days.
We would.
Plus, we haven't all heard them.
So that's a goodbye from me. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye from me.
Ta-ra.
Bye. Be seeing you.